They had way more powerful people backing them, and at any moment her resources could be blocked. She's a little thrown off and says every business has its risks, but you shouldn't underestimate this organization. It's not like they couldn't smuggle things. Calix, and as they can't be the case, the money has to be used legally. That's because he wants to prove the honest origin of the business. Basically legitimize it in the market, right? Urena immediately understands and says he probably stole it from someone. To which he responds that you would never steal, that was compensation for moral damage done to him. She repeats it and he stands up, telling her to stop saying he steals money. Besides, it was her who should be convincing him she won't run off of his money. And she says he doesn't have to worry because the simplest way to solve that is for her to become the hostage herself. Madame Orodona right there man says she's going crazy. But Urena says 10 years have already passed. Her people have been wandering for a long time through these unknown lands. At this rate, they've always remained a criminal group. The whole organization would collapse. The one is hesitant, but Urena insists, saying that with 100,000 gold coins, it would be enough to help the whole family. Not to mention that she doesn't even care about reclaiming her position. All she wants is for them not to suffer hardship anymore. But man, Calix just tells both of them to cut the theatrics. The other woman over there got pissed, obviously turned around cursing, but he just replies that he doesn't care about her past. If she was expecting to be treated like a princess, she should go back to the kingdom of Jaipur right now. The other one is fuming, but then Urena stands up, grabs a knife, cuts her hair, and says she's not a princess anymore. He should be confused, thinking she didn't want to follow the business world. And he was sure he already had an idea she'd do something like that. Calix says his plan was to take everything with her, but unfortunately, she was still too young for him to trust. Until that changes, he would guide her. Urena tells him to answer how old is he anyway, since he doesn't look that much older. Holy crap, I'm finding this funny. Even if she's more mature, she's still just a kid in the end. The negotiator says he's only there to provide the money. Besides, his age doesn't matter here, right? Since he's the one bankrolling everything, Urena sits down and tells him to go ahead and say his plan already, but he says that before that, he needs his issue resolved. They want the information he asked for. Urena tells the other woman to deliver everything and she just replies, whoever has God, rise up. The boys notice the woman who was cursing him before has now completely changed. Apparently, she knows how to separate business from emotion. In a room full of books and papers all over the floor, she says he'll find all the info he needs to read. He thanks her and says he's starting now. Next morning, he wakes up exhausted. He's mad even that concern about the Urena stuff anymore. The issue now is figuring out how to conquer the dungeon. The first option is to go with the elite members he brought or, obviously, hire other mercenaries. The problem with too many mercenaries is it increases the chances of secrets leaking. That's why the best option would be to go with just an elite team. In that case, he at least needs a mage. Because for his team full of knights, a single mage would make a massive difference in strategy. That's why these bastards are so valuable. And after checking all the records of the city, he found a rank 6 mage, the most powerful one living in the region. An old man known as Idlan Belchua. Right away, he wants to ask Urena something, but my name says she's in class and bam, door in his face. Another mage arrives, telling him to have some tea in the meantime. Looking in his own reflection, our boy can't believe he found a guy like that. A rank 6 was the equivalent of Russell, right? But a mage, the problem for our boy is that before and his father, the Chikan family didn't have anything in this world. And he's the first person to take over right after, without it even being official. So the chances of that Idland accepting are really low. Then Urena shows up, already asking where the money is and when they're starting the business. But he tells her to calm down first. He needs to do something else before that. Besides, the project with her would take at least 6 months to 1 year to kick off. She's mad but tries to stay calm and shows a paper. It's a confirmation of a 30,000 gold coin deposit. She says it looks legend, but it's only 30,000, right? And he replies that obviously he wasn't going to just send all 100,000 out of nowhere. Urena agrees and says for now, that amount for her big bro's enough. He's kind of confused with this big bro thing, but she just says that anyone who gives that much money is automatically a big bro man. Then she tells him to go ahead and say why he called her there. He then asks if she knows someone named Idland Belchua. And from her reaction, it's obvious she does. Immediately, a Rodona appears from the corner saying that Idland Belchua is suspected of being a black mage. Urena says he's not and the woman agrees, but she's just giving the heads up so he's aware and avoids suspicion. Alex has already gathered a lot of information on this guy. Seems like he's someone with a difficult personality but not a bad person. Then he says that if anything happens, he'll take responsibility. But he wants to know where the guy is. Urena, however, warns him that she's not going to say anything and that he better forget about this person. But I don't get it, man. 1 second later, she's already talking, saying that if he heads to the north gate of Pasnu, which is cemetery up on the village mountain and a small house. Obviously, the guy is right there. He asks how well they know him and she says they only know what's written in the books. He's someone who distanced himself from this place a few years ago and seems to be focused on some weird experiments. Besides that, he almost never goes out. He asked about the experiments and she says that obviously may just hate when anything about their research leaks. Urena, however, is hesitant. She asks if he's really going to that old man's house, confused who wants to know why she's acting like that. Did he do something? Urena says that every time she sees him, she gets the feeling she's going to end up broke for some reason. He better be careful. No matter how tempting the offer is, he should refuse. Then she asks if he understood and he says yes, he completely understood. She then says that especially he was not to use the 100,000 he promised to invest in her because that was already hers. He realizes that apparently something happened between them, but right then, it takes Urena away. Not understanding any of that was time to go meet Tadwi Loon up north at a community cemetery. Krot says they've arrived and both of them think it looks like a little house from a fairy tale. They go to the door, knock, and ask if anyone's there. The person inside just replies that whoever it is just opened the door and come in. The two of them are looking at each other while our boy thinks this guy must be confident. If it was a monster and attacked a bandit, we'd just let people walk in like that. The door opens and he's sure this guy is confident in what he does. With the cauldron and stuff on the shelves, the place gives off black mage vibes. Not to mention the man himself gave off a completely different impression than the books. He stares at the old man. Then coughs and says he came to meet him and introduces himself as Alex Sheeking. Idland replies that it's a shame but he knows nothing of the outside world. So if he just said a great name, he has no idea. Wow, now he says he's not from some great family and that title doesn't mean much. And even if it did, it's not something that compares to someone who reached the level of Archmage. The old man turns and says he's good with words. It's just a shame he doesn't have time to sit around chatting with him. So if he doesn't get to the point, they'll be kicked out now. Alex gets straight to the point, man. He says, I want to conquer a dungeon nearby and thought you might give me a hand, friend. The old man asks if he's talking about the Impala Mountains. Our boy smiles and says that's exactly the one. The old man drops his spoon and turns around, saying it's been a long time since he's seen a kid as crazy as this one. Our boy is calm while Crod is losing it. Seems like he's mad. The old man won't stop insulting Calix but he's up against an Archmage. What's he gonna do? Calix then says he's not going to hold back on the offer. The old man asks if he's talking about money. That was something that only had value if he survived. So it was best to go home if he valued his life. Out of nowhere, Calix loses it and says that if the old man needs anything for his research, he just has to ask. But the old man yells back saying it seems like he's just there to snoop around his research and they better get lost. The two are trembling and in the next scene, his face down on the table. Urena asks if he lost all the money and he says that Dan old man wasn't even interested in his money. She thinks it's strange and our boy asks her to just explain her story with that old man. She then explains that when Idland got there, she invested some money. He asks what happened and she says that obviously old man never paid her back. Crod gets mad and says it's insane. An old man stealing money from a child. Since obviously she must have been even younger back then. Calix asks if she has a contract and she says obviously she does, she won't lose it until she gets paid. Seems like the old man of 30 gold, which was 6 years of Crod's salary. Now if I'm confused, didn't he offer 100,000? If 30 gold is 6 years of work, then how much is 100,000? Yeah, you can do the math here, right? That's like 20,000 years of work. I think they're mixing up the values, or maybe it is going to be a plot twist coming. But yeah, Urena is a wreck. Crod asks how she stayed so calm after all that and she immediately yells saying that clearly she's not calm. But that damnable man has no money to pay back.